Hello everyone, I'm FARMERSIM and welcome to the second instalment of my guide to Autodrive. So in this episode we are going to talk about field access points and a couple of different variants you can have of those in order to get your vehicles heading to and from your fields, dealing with the work that you're doing, and we're then going to go through the several different modes that Autodrive has to offer. Those modes are drive mode, pick up and deliver mode, the delivery mode, the load mode, and of course unload combine mode. So let's get into it. Okay, so field access points. Now, in my experience with Farming Simulator 22, I think I can essentially say I've seen two different types of field layouts, essentially access layouts. You can have a field like this that doesn't actually have its own defined entrance point. It just has lanes running either side of it, and thankfully in this case it has a nice grass verge to give us a little bit of room to create an in and out point, or there are examples like this one where you have what is essentially a defined access point. In this case you've got this lovely little bridge, and the way you'd have this set up, or the way I have it set up here, is essentially you have a way in along the left here up to the field node, and then a way out and back towards the defined entrance exit point of the field. So back over here, as you can see, in this case this field doesn't have that defined entrance point. It just has lanes running either side of it. So we have a two-way course highlighted in blue here along the lane, so vehicles can travel up and down in either direction. And in the way I've done mine here, this has a single directional route feeding off the two-way down here, comes in, gets to the field node here, field 9 in this case, and then spurs off back up to the two-way course there. Now, personal preference, of course, the way I have things set up here, as I say, with this single directional lane coming into the field, you can have this as a two-way if you wanted, so that your vehicles can access the field from either direction. This is, I guess, just down to personal preference. This is the way I've set it, so the vehicle can only access the field from this direction, and it can only get out the field in that direction. Again, entirely down to personal preference. So every field access point that we all individually create on our maps, they're all going to be inherently slightly different. It's highly unlikely that they're all going to be exactly the same, but the basic principles remain the same. As long as you have a smooth, unobstructed method for whatever vehicles and implements you're using to access the fields, they should work pretty well. Now in this case, in the one I've created here for field 25, there is quite a large loop round here to get in and out. Admittedly, it doesn't have to be quite so big. It can be a bit tighter, and it can come back here, minimizing the amount that the vehicles drive in the field. If this was a field of crop basically, and this was a grain cart for example, and it wanted to access the field, there's obviously a chance that it's going to be driving through crops, which isn't ideal. But fortunately, Courseplay and Autodrive, when you're running them both, so I suppose in this case Autodrive, it doesn't, even if you have crop destruction turned on, your Autodrive driver will not destroy the crops. The crop will only be destroyed if you're driving the vehicle. As soon as you employ an Autodrive worker to, for example, to run grain cart in this field, and it drives through crops, they won't get destroyed, thankfully. But yeah, as I say, the principle remains the same. You want a smooth, unobstructed way for your stuff to get in and out of the field. Now, in an ideal world, if you're fortunate enough in the particular field you're working in to have room on the outside of the field to create an exit point, as it were, or even an entrance point, then great. As it happens on this field, I don't. We'd have come in from the access point here across the bridge. Yes, I could have gone left. I could have gone right, sorry, there, and done something here. My mind always just makes me go off to the left and go that way, and plus the entrance point is obviously to the left of the field here, so we've come in, kept as close to the edge as reasonably possible here, and spins it round and comes back out again. If these trees weren't here, for example, and this little river wasn't here, I'd have maybe decided to, instead of it turning right and coming around on itself here, I'd have turned it left and brought it out across the grass verge here and back out that way. But then it also does depend entirely on what vehicles you're using. For example, you know, if you had big long trailers, a lorry, a truck, for example, they need a decent amount of space to turn around. So a setup like this would work pretty well for a 40-foot lorry and like a Wilson Pacesetter trailer, for example. So essentially, when it comes to field access points, I suppose that those are the basic pointers, the couple of variants you can have. You can have this one, this type, whether it's a single way or a two-way, or you can have this one, an in and out, forming a bit of a loop in the field, or around the field, or in that kind of design, anyway. Now, of course, the wonderful and great thing about Autodrive, or one of the many wonderful and great things about Autodrive, is that you are free to customise everything to whatever you want it to be. So the couple of access points that I have just showed you there aren't just what you can have. You can have something set up like this. So the simple in and out access point we had previously now has an exit point in both directions. So what Autodrive tends to do, it will find its shortest route to the destination you're sending it to. So in the initial example I had, the course essentially limited the tractor to accessing the field from this end. It could only come from this end. It would come up the two-way course here, and then it would turn a right onto the green lane here and get to field 9. But now that we've added a couple of extra access points, it can now come from this end. It can come down here, down the two-way course, all the way down here, and it then hangs a right, spins around here, and joins up to there. And it will consider that if the vehicle is over there in the distance at the silo there in the distance, it will then figure itself out and realise that that way would be the shortest way in, and it will plot that route accordingly. So you're free to design them to your heart's content in that respect. Admittedly, the simpler way of doing this is just to have this single green lane here, single track, turning it into a two-way, but that might not suit your wants and needs for doing your Autodrive course. You might want to do something like this. So you're free to design your in and out access points exactly as you want them to be. Okay, so next up is Autodrive's different modes. So on the Autodrive heads-up display, you cycle through the different modes with this button here. At the minute we have the drive mode selected, and drive mode is essentially as simple as that. It's the mode you use just to send your vehicles to and from different destinations around the map. Now this is obviously all assuming that your Autodrive network is working relatively well and all the access points, all the destinations are set up and accessible. So in this instance we have Hogs Equipment, which is the name of the dealership on the map. Say for example you've just bought a trailer and you want to go pick it up. You can highlight your destination, click on go, quite simply off it goes. Assuming it can find its way there, you'll be fine. If there's any problem with the Autodrive network and it can't find its way to that destination, you'll be met with a message and it will say the Autodrive driver cannot reach that destination. But as you can see from here, it can, and it's just essentially going to drive itself down the road and get to the destination. Now that's obviously, this works for all the vehicles. You can do it with tractors, trucks, combines, cars, it doesn't matter, as long as the network is working up and properly and each destination is accessible. You can send whatever you want to wherever you want. The next mode is the pickup and deliver mode. Now this is a brilliant one. I really do make a lot of use of this one. So essentially what this does is this allows you to pick up a crop, a product from a destination and take it to another destination. So say for example you've done your harvest for the year, all your crops are in your silo and you're waiting till optimum sell time to sell those particular crops. So what you can do, obviously you're no doubt going to have many trailers worth of crops in your silo and you want to sell it all. So in this instance we have our farm silo here that's behind us and it's got some wheat in it, and we want to go and take that wheat to in this case the Ohio Agri Co-op to sell it. So using the pickup and deliver mode indicated by this icon here, and you know which mode you're in because it says it up here in the blue box. If you change it, you've got deliver mode there, you've got load mode, you've got unload combine mode and drive mode. and pick up and deliver. So, pick up and deliver. We are going to send this tractor and trailer literally just round the corner here to the what I've called Richmond Farm Silo. We're going to pick up some wheat and we're going to take that to the Ohio Agri Co-op. So once you've got your destinations and your product correctly selected in the appropriate boxes, it's quite simple. Click on go. And your tractor will, or vehicle, will make its way to the first destination, highlighted in blue there. It's going to trundle its way around here. It does slow down when it registers that it's getting to the load point. And as you'll see, it will cross over the load trigger. There we go. We can see our wheat being tipped into our trailer. Shouldn't take too long, hopefully. There we go. And it's saving us some fuel for us at the same time. There we go. Right, so he's now got a trailer load of wheat. And once he's crossed the node for the farm silo, as you can see there, Ohio Agri Co-op is now selected in blue. So that's where the Autodrive driver is heading to now. So we'll just follow him a little way on his way. Right, so we are approaching the sell point now. As you'll see, the way I have this network set up, this is a course I made quite a long time ago when this map came out. So there are a couple of things on this Autodrive network that, for example, over there you can see it says biomass heating plant. That's not there anymore. So assuming your tip nodes are set correctly, which I think this one is, it's far enough away, so essentially it'll cross the threshold for the tip point, and there you go, it's tipping away. Now the other instruction to bear in mind here is the loop counter here. Now we only have one trailer load of wheat in that silo that we've just picked up from. If I'm going to stop this now, because this will now make its way back to the farm silo, expecting to pick up more wheat. I know there isn't more wheat in there, so essentially what it will do, it will just get to that silo and it will sit and wait and do absolutely nothing. So let's just bring that to a stop there. For example, this loop counter here, if you can see my mouse cursor hovering over what looks like a little bit of an infinity symbol. If you click that, it goes all the way up to 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then back to the default, which is just an infinite loop essentially. Say for example, for numbers sake, let's say this trailer is a 20,000 litre trailer and I had 60,000 litres of wheat in the silo, but I only wanted to sell 40,000 litres of it. I know that because this is a 20,000 litre trailer and I only want to sell essentially 2 trailer loads, I would have that loop counter set to 2, so the Autodrive driver will know to only perform 2 of these runs. He will go and pick up 1 trailer load, tip it, make its way back, pick up the second, job done. Instead of just emptying your silo of everything that's in there, you might want to keep hold of a certain amount for feeding your chickens or whatever, or for for your productions or whatnot. So yeah, that is how you would control how many times your Autodrive driver would loop round the pick up and deliver loop essentially. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward, wouldn't you say? The next mode through the cycling of the mode button is the deliver or delivery mode. Now this is quite simply take a product or a thing to a destination and tip it. So we have a trailer of barley here and we are going to take this to the silo that we just picked the wheat up from. So quite simply, as long as you have the destination set correctly there, click on go. Your driver will make its way to that destination and purely and simply perform the function of tipping whatever is in his trailer into that destination. Then it will stop. Job done. Right, so we're arriving back at the farm now. In the deliver mode, is essentially going to follow the route round and quite simply tip the barley in the silo that I've told him to. There we go. They do go painfully slow when they get to their targets, I must admit, but I suppose in this case slow is better than faster. So there we go. The Autodrive driver has recognised the tip point. He'll unload what he's been told to unload. There we go, job done. And when the trailer's finished doing what it needs to do, essentially that'll just turn off. You'll get to that point, you'll be alerted that that driver has finished his task. There we go, job done. The next mode we're going to take a look at is the load mode. Now, quite honestly, I love this one. It's brilliant, it really is. I'm sure we've all been there where, for example, lime spreading. We've got a really thirsty field, it's never had any lime before, it's going to take an absolute ton of lime, and the particular lime spreader you have isn't particularly big, it doesn't have a huge capacity, and it's going to take quite a while to get this field done. And you feel like getting it done via automation. So, we are going to combine this one with Courseplay. This one works perfectly with Courseplay, if I'm honest. I use this this variant, this combination all the time. So, in the load mode here, highlighted with this icon here, we have the essentially what you would have in this top box is the field that you're working in this case field 9. I have created a lime pickup point just over there. We'll follow it round, you'll see how I've done it in a second. And lime obviously is what we want to fill the hopper with. So we've got a Courseplay course set up, we're going to set that on its way. There we go. He's now going to run this course, spreading lime, and this is no doubt going to run out very quickly. When it does run out, you want to make sure that you have the Courseplay button here selected, so that Autodrive knows to take over when Courseplay finishes or stops. In this case, it's going to stop when the hopper runs dry of lime. So we shall run with it until it does. Okay, so the hopper has now run out, and as you can see, Autodrive has immediately taken over. Field 9 is highlighted in blue here, so the driver is heading for field 9 essentially. That's what he's doing. As you can see, it looks like he is going to be, he's noticed and registered the edge of the field. So essentially, he's going to find his way to field 9, to that node. He should, if I'm correct in saying, he's, yeah, because field 9 is, let's bring the nodes up so we can see what he's actually heading for. He should spin around here. There we go. And once he crosses the threshold for field 9, he's already figured out the route he's going to take to the line point. And as you can see in the blue box there, it tells us it's going to take 53 seconds for the driver to reach that particular point. So, we'll follow him on his journey. He's going to come down this two-way course here. He's going to come through the trees. I'm just going to jump into cab mode now just to make visibility a bit better, because we all know what it's like when you're going through a deep area of trees. But now he's going to come out of here. There we are. The Autodrive route spins us round here to this line point here that I have set up. So it's going to slow down, as you'd expect it to do. Note how far in front the sell point is there. Still doesn't matter. As you can see there, the money's going down, the lime is filling up. Done. Paid £647 for that lime. He's now going to slowly finish off his journey to the line point. He'll then cross that threshold, and then, as you can see, highlighted back in the blue text here, he's now heading his way back to field 9. And when the driver gets back to field 9, hits the node, and Autodrive then knows to hand back over to Courseplay. And Courseplay, as you can see there in the heads-up display, the green icon there has lit back up again, so Courseplay is now taken over, and it knows to find its way back to the point in which it left off. In this case, it is node or point 77. As you can see there in the Courseplay heads-up display, point 77 of a total of 1,328 points that make up that course. So yeah, it's really clever. It's a great combination when you get Autodrive and Courseplay working together. So yeah, he's finding his way back. We can see where he left off there, clearly and obviously by the where the line ends. We'll just watch it do its thing for a moment or two. And there we go. Carrying on where he left off. And it will essentially do that for the whole field, obviously. As soon as the hopper runs dry, it will run that same route, find its way back to the first point of the field for the Autodrive part, and then find its way to the lime pickup point, fill up, and come back and get the job done. Now that same principle, the same thing works for fertilizing, it works for seeding, it works for herbicide, it works for anything essentially that you're running like this in a field. So if you can be planting, and you can tell the machine to essentially between Courseplay and Autodrive to, once it's empty, to fill up at a seed point, fill up with seed, and when it runs empty it will do exactly the same thing but with seeds, or as I say, herbicide, fertilizer, you name it, it'll do it. And last but not least, we have the unload combine mode. So there's one setting primarily that we need to make sure that we have set correctly when it comes to this one. The tractor and trailer, or as Autoload refers to them as the unloader, we're going to be working here in field 9. So the unloader here, the tractor, has field 9 set as its destination to unload the combine from, and it's going to be taking the crop that we're harvesting to the Ohio Agri Co-op. Now obviously that can be set to whatever you want it to. You can take it to your own silo, etc. For the purposes of this, we're going to be taking it to the sell point that's in the distance, Ohio Agri Co-op. Now to make sure that this works properly, you need to make sure that the combine harvester that you're running, whether it's running Courseplay or whether you're driving it yourself, you need to make sure that this destination here is also field 9. If this wasn't set as field 9 and it was set as something else, another field, another destination, the unloader wouldn't know what it was doing, and it would just sit there and not do what you want it to do. So quite simply, make sure that the unloader has field 9 set as its field work destination, and the harvester that you're using, whether it's Courseplay or yourself, also has field 9 set here in the drive box here. Obviously it's not going to be using Autodrive, it just needs to make sure that that field is set in that box. So before we jump in and get cracking with this one, there's a couple of settings to check in each of the vehicles before you get going. So bringing up the Autodrive menus here in the tractor, or the unloader as it were, there's these two options here: restrict Pathfinder to field and restrict the unloader to field. Now as it says at the bottom there regarding this one, by default both of these are set to no, and I personal preference, I always turn these to yes. So this one is, if the unloader is already parked in the field, he will limit the Pathfinder to the field boundaries. So this is essentially the characteristics of how it moves around the field, finding its way to the combine harvester. I always like to keep it within the confines of the field because, I mean, depending on the map you're on, depending on the field you're in, you might have a close-knit fence close to the field boundary, trees. We all know the obstacles you can get anywhere on a map. I find it always easier just to keep that click to yes, and then 99.9% of the time, the unloader, the tractor, the grain cart will keep itself within the boundaries of the field. And the same goes for this one as well. Essentially just restrict unloader to field while actively unloading. Always just helps keep it as tidy as possible. As I say, 99.9% of the time this tends to work. There has been the odd occasion where I found that a tractor will make its way outside of the field boundary to try and, as it's trying to figure out a path to take. That can be a bit frustrating. It can be alright if you've got nothing around the field, nothing for it to bump into, then it doesn't really matter. But most of the time there is something for a tractor to bump into, whether it's a tree, whether it's a fence, whether it's a building. You never know. It's entirely dependent on the map that you're playing on. But so as I say, I always tend to have those set to yes. And also in the combine harvester, we pop into the settings here, down to the when you're in a combine harvester and you go into the Autodrive settings, you'll have this icon here for the combine harvester. Now, most of this essentially, it only really becomes prevalent when you're using Courseplay and Autodrive. If I'm running this myself, these kind of things don't really mean anything. Obviously, active unloading, yes or no, unloads the harvesters while driving. Personal preference, I tend to always have that set to no as a personal preference. If you're running big fields and multiple machines and you've got more than one grain cart following you, aiming to empty your hopper, you can have that selected to yes, and then the combine harvester will know that there are multiple grain carts in the field, and that if it's emptying its auger into a unloader and it fills that unloader and that unloader drives off because it's full, it then knows it can call a different one as well, if that makes any sense. But obviously in this field we don't. It's just me and one grain cart. And the pre-call level, by default, that's set to 60%. I always turn that up to 85%. Again, this really just means something when you're, for me anyway, personally, I've always felt that this is only really prevalent when you're running Courseplay as well, when the full automation comes into play. But regardless, whatever your personal preferences are, make your changes, your selections there, and click on apply. And then we're almost ready to go. The last thing I wanted to bring to your attention is the way that you can customize the grain cart or the unloader's behavior regarding how it exits a field. Now, the existing Autodrive network that we've had in this episode so far has just obviously been the two-way course coming up and down this lane, and quite a simple in and out from the single directional routes to the side as it makes its way to the actual field node. Now, what you can also do is this. Another quick tip, actually, before we go any further. If we remove the nodes and we go into the workers menu, the active workers menu, as you can see there, you just see the map, nothing else. When you bring the nodes into visibility there and jump into the workers map again, there you can see now the entire Autodrive network that we have mapped out on the entire map. There you go, you can see the whole thing. So what I have done, and this is what a lot of people do. If you were to download any of the available Autodrive networks that are made by, I think, someone like the Autodrive guys or the Autodrive creators, what they tend to do, and I have seen this done on quite a lot of Autodrive networks, is they essentially have a two-way course running right around the perimeter of each and every field. Now, what this does, and what you also have to make sure you have done if you are setting this up yourself, is that from that two-way course that is running the entire perimeter, you essentially have an access, an exit, as it were, for the grain cart to make its way from that two-way perimeter to the field node. So from this side, it goes from here and just follows it up, feeds into this bit here so it can get itself to field 9. And from the other side, I'll jump into construction mode just to show you because it seems a bit quicker. From this side, it runs from here, feeds onto the existing network there so it can make its way down here, turn itself around here, and essentially find its way to field 9, to the node that is field 9. Now, what that, I suppose, again, this is entirely down to personal preference. It does work whether you have the two-way perimeter there or not. But I feel this is ideal for really, really big fields, having a two-way network around the perimeter of the field. It can work in any field, don't get me wrong. I don't often do it this way. I tend to have it set up just as this. If any of you have watched my Let's Play videos, for example, or any of my series, for example, going forward, I've never really set fields up like this. Every time I have a Courseplay and an Autodrive set up, I just have a simple field entrance exit point, as this is here, and it tends to work relatively well. But having this two-way perimeter around the field controls the way that the tractor, the grain cart, the unloader, leaves the field, and it can be a much neater and tidier process. Now, in order for it to make use of this two-way perimeter around the field, the setting that you need to change when you're in the tractor, again, if you jump into the Courseplay settings, into the vehicle settings, and you have this box here for field exit, if you have it set as default, essentially its field exit strategy will be to find its way across the field, around the field, however it finds its way to this node. If you change that field exit setting to closest point, when the unloader is within the boundary of the fields, the closest point at any point, wherever it is in the field, will be one of these two-way perimeter pieces around the edge of the field. So wherever it is, if you obviously when you've got the autodrive nodes visible, as we have here, that red line that joins from the tractor to the closest node will always be there, whether the node is here or all the way over there. So when this tractor is within the perimeter and boundaries of the field, the closest point will be one of these. So if that setting is set to leave the field at the closest point, when it's full and it's then trying to find its way to this field 9 node to then make its way on to wherever you're sending your crop to, whether it's the sell point or a silo or whatever, it will find its way around out of the field, around the perimeter edge of the field using the two-way course, and assuming and making sure that you have a viable exit point from that two-way network, whether it's at this end or that end, will make sure that the unloader, the tractor, the grain cart, can find its way out of the field, running right around the outside essentially, instead of crossing over the field. Because I have found that even though you have the avoid fruit setting set to yes, there are numerous occasions where that tractor will still just drive straight across the crop. It won't destroy anything, obviously, because you're not driving it, autodrive is, so you're not going to actually see and lose yield because of crop destruction. But if you're trying to make things look and behave as realistic as possible, in real life, a farmer in a grain cart wouldn't just take the quick route and just go straight across his field. He will make his way around the outside. So as I say, most of the time that tends to work, but there has been occasions where I found that the tractor, regardless of what settings you have, the tractor will still drive across the field. You can take as many precautions as you can. There's only a couple of settings you can change to make sure you can try and alleviate that, but now and again they still do what they're not meant to do. So anyway, right, so I hope I've explained that even remotely helpfully. As I say, two different approaches to how the unloader behaves while trying to leave a field. You can have it set to the default setting, sorry, wrong button, have it set to the default setting, or you can create this two-way perimeter around the field. But either way, let's crack on and get it working, shall we? So first and foremost, we've got the tractor by the edge of the field here, we've got an empty trailer, we've got field 9 set here, and we're going to take it to Ohio Agri Co-op. So let's click on go, like that. That should now just creep forward a little bit and find its way to field 9. There we go. And as you can see there, it now says in the top box of the Autodrive heads-up display, waiting for call. So let's jump into the combine harvester now. There we go. Start the engine. And as I said before, the main thing to make sure that is set here so that this tractor, the unloader, can talk to this combine and know where it is, just to make sure that the destination in the Autodrive box for the harvester is field 9. So once you're happy and that is set up as it is, it's time to rock and roll and get harvesting. So we'll crack on with this, and I shall pick you back up in a few moments when our hopper is almost full. Right, so we are pretty much, there we go, 100% full. So I'm going to control the auger pipe there. I'm not going to pull that out right away. So we're now at exactly 100% full. As soon as I pull the auger pipe out, the unloader, the grain cart, is going to now find its way to the pipe. When you are driving this yourself, as soon as you get out of the vehicle, Autodrive will stop trying to find its way to the combine harvester, you have to remain in the vehicle seated at all times for Autodrive to recognise where to find you. I don't quite understand why, even if the engine's running and the pipe is out, but you're not in it, it won't work. If Courseplay is running the vehicle, then it's fine. You can jump in and out of the vehicle all day long, because Courseplay will have actually be controlling the vehicle in general. So let's pull the auger pipe out. There we go. Fortunately, I've made it round one whole headland of the field to take me to 100% full, and there we go. As soon as the pipe is out, the Autodrive driver has recognised where we are. It's recognised where the auger is, and it is nice and slowly approaching us, ready to get unloaded. So there we go. Pretty straightforward, wouldn't you say? Although that is a bit silly. I know Autodrive isn't necessarily pretty straightforward, but once you've got it up and running, once your Autodrive network is working well, and you've got a reasonable grip on the basics, it does become relatively straightforward, I promise. And as I said before, the primary thing to make sure that you've got set when it comes to the combine unload is to make sure that the field target in both machines is set to the same field. So, right, I'm going to crack on with this, and I'll bring you back in essentially when the Autodrive trailer is full, and then we'll watch it perform its mission in getting itself out of the field, essentially. So I'll see you all in a few moments. Right, there we are, another full hopper. So let's extend that auger pipe. And as before, should be doing its thing correctly. There we go. As you'll see, the tractor, the grain cart, is heading its way to the auger now. I was worried then that it was just about to take a straight line across the crop, but it hasn't. It's registered and recognises where there is and isn't crop, and it is making its way around the edge of the unharvested area, as it should do, to my pipe. So, and I'm pretty sure that what we have in the hopper here is going to fill the trailer. So as soon as that trailer gets to full, I shall retract the auger pipe and we will jump into the tractor and follow it on its way. There we go. Excellent stuff. I'm not sure how much of this hopper it's going to take, because I can't flick to the tractor to find out, because as soon as I flick to the tractor to find out, it'll move, essentially. It needs me to stay in the cab here to make sure that stays where it is, but as soon as this auger stops unloading, I'm then safe to do so. So there we go. Right, so pipe in. Now, there we go. So if I bring up the Autodrive nodes, where's my mouse cursor gone? There we go. Right. Because we now have it set to the closest point, as you can see, it is now... Sorry, because we have the field exit set to the closest point, it's now following the two-way perimeter edge. There we go. Might be a bit wibbly-wobbly here and there. Come on, what are you doing? Where are you going now? Okay. Oh, I see what it's doing. Right, it's worked out that the quickest route for it to exit the field is to follow the two-way course around the outside, but the quickest way for it was to go back this way, essentially, not to go around the rest of the field. So that is actually Autodrive doing what it should do. So now it's centralised on the network, as it were. Why it's slowed down, I'm not too sure. Come on, maybe it's just thinking about things. But yes, this is doing what it should do. And here we are at the exit point for the perimeter two-way. So there we go. It just quite smoothly finds its way to what was part of the existing network, the field, the basic field entrance exit point. It should loop itself around here. There we go. and it is now finding its way to the Ohio Agri Co-op. So we shall follow it on its journey, and I'll see you there in a few moments. Right, and here we are. It's just pulling itself into the sell point where we've told it to go. It is great when it's all up and running and working properly, Autodrive and Courseplay. It really is. Now I know this is an Autodrive. This is part of the Autodrive tutorial. I am going to do a one of the episodes at the end of this series is going to be like a finale, so to speak, like an Autodrive and Courseplay working together in various different scenarios. But yeah, it's great when they're up and running. So there we go. That's done its job. It's tipping the crop as we've told it to do. There we go. 65 grand for what we've just tipped. And now this will quite simply wait for the trailer to reset itself, and it's going to find its way back to field 9. Now throughout all of this, setting up the unload combine mode, there are a couple more settings that you can look at and tweak if need be, especially from the unloader side of things. Again, back into the vehicle settings. If you were to find that as you're running your combine harvester and your unloader, your grain cart, doesn't quite sit directly underneath your auger pipe. I have found this with a couple of modded combine harvesters. I don't know. I can't explain what it is that causes the problem, but essentially, if you can see that the line that the unloader is sat at here, i.e., directly underneath the auger pipe. Now and again, depending on the combine you're using, I've found that some tractors can run quite wide here, and essentially that they'll pull up to the side of the combine harvester as you would expect them to do, but because they're too far away from the pipe, it doesn't register, and they spend a couple of seconds not doing anything, and then they try again, and they loop around and they try again, and they just get caught in an infinite loop of trying to get close to the combine, and they won't. So what you need to do, if you were to come across that, is you can amend the pipe offset. So essentially you can reduce it or increase it depending on the positioning of the problem that you're encountering, but you can reduce that pipe offset so that it brings the unloader closer to or further away from the combine harvester as you would need it to be. And the other one that you might want to bear in mind, but I've never really had to alter it, is the unload fill level. And I suppose this would be prevalent. I think it's probably down to the size of the hopper on the combine plus the size of the trailer that you're using. But essentially, if the trailer you're using, for example, gets to almost 100% full after one hopper's worth of combine harvester, you might want to adjust that fill level so that every time it takes a hopper of the combine harvester, it then takes itself off to be unloaded. Again, personal preference, entirely unique to the personal setup that you're running, the field, the farm, whichever, the tools, the trailers. So yeah, but I think essentially at the minute that is what I believe to be a relatively basic rundown of Autodrive and its different modes. We've been through a very basic look at the drive mode, which, as I said earlier in the video, is a very simple, essentially that's just like a destination thing. The drive mode, if you want to send a vehicle to a point, whether it's a field, a sell point, anything, you use the drive mode, click on go, and it will send itself to where you want it to go. We've got the pick up and deliver, which is obviously taking crops or products from one point to another. We've got the deliver mode, which is the same, just very simply just taking a trailer of or a load of a product from wherever it is to the point. It will tip it, it will drop it, and then stay there. We've got the load function, which is very useful, as we demonstrated in the video, for running quite tiresome tasks, in my opinion, like liming a field. You can send your vehicle from the field, from its Courseplay, if it's running Courseplay, and it'll take itself back to the fill point for the lime, for the fertilizer, for the seed, and fill itself back up. and crack on back into the field. And like we've just seen, the unload combine mode, which is the one I know that's the one we all look forward to, isn't it, when it comes to the automation side of things, getting the combines running. I know it's my favourite one anyway. And I do hope that I have given a very half-decent demonstration in how to operate these functions in Autodrive. There's a lot of customization in it. There's a lot of tweaks that you can make to suit your playstyle, as it were, and to suit the particular vehicles you're in, and you may well need to do a bit of tweaking here and there dependent on the farm that you're on, the fields that you're in, but generally as a rule the way I have showed you to set things up here today should work almost 99.9% of the time out of the box. So thanks for watching, everybody. As I said, I really hope you've found the video even remotely useful or interesting or informative. I suppose that is the purpose of these tutorials, I suppose, is to be informative and teach you something you didn't already know, if you didn't already know it. And I hope I've managed to achieve that in some way or form. So again, thanks for your time for watching the video, everyone. I really hope you found it useful, and I shall see you in the next episode.